First and foremost, thank you so much, Erika, for taking the time to speak with me today. A lot of people that recognize your face, from Living Single, and you're just a brilliant actress.
Thank you.
But I love the fact that you are lending your talents in a different way. So for those that don't know, can you talk a little bit about Finding Tamika?
Sure. And Nakia, thank you for having me. I appreciate the invitation. Finding Tamika is an Audible original series. It's produced by Kevin Hart and Charlemagne the God. And Color Farm Media is my company with me and Ben Arnon. Our co-producers are Rebecca Howard. She's Tamika's aunt, and also David Person, who brought us all together, who originally reported on Tamika's story for USA Today. Tamika was a young woman who went missing in 2004, just shy of her 25th birthday. And 15 months later, she was found, murdered, and there was a trial, and her murderer, Christopher Hampton, was convicted for her murder. And some people might say that's the long and short of it. But we thought there's more to Tamika. In fact, there was a problem with the fact that Rebecca Howard, who's Tamika's aunt, is a lawyer, and also a PR specialist, and she could not get any national press for this. And she started asking people, why can't I get press for this? And Tamika became the poster child for missing white women syndrome, something that Gwen Ifill coined many years before, and people started creating groups like Black and Missing Foundation and things like that. So Tamika started, or I think feels like a piece of the movement that was starting, but it's definitely one of the poster children for it.
Now, whose idea was this to do the Audible original and get the word out once again? Because like you said, you had started talking about this a long time ago. So who initiated moving this forward?
David Person, that would be David Person. I met him doing a women's event and Alabama about a year before. And then the pandemic hit. And he gave me a call and said, do you know who Tamika Houston is? And I said, I'm sorry, I don't, which is kind of weird because my mother lived in Greenville, South Carolina for many years. And, but I had not heard of her story. And he said, well, I know her aunt and it's a crime story, but I'd love to see what you do with it, because by that time I had already done the reparations podcast for Black Effect for Charlemagne. And anyway, the point is we ended up, actually, no, I hadn't done that yet. It's so funny. All these years are bleeding into each other. I hadn't done that for Charlemagne yet. And he said, do you think this would be a good podcast? And I said, I don't have any experience in audio, but let's give it a shot. And we started going around with it. So it was David Person.
Wow. Okay. So David, then you, and then how did Charlemagne and Kevin Hart's production kind of become a part of this?
Well, we started going around looking for funding because everybody needs to be funded to do these types of things. And we had some really great meetings and some possibilities, partnership, but eventually those all went away. And Charlemagne, I'd come on his show, I think a year earlier, because I was doing the reparations documentary. And he said, Queen, you still doing that documentary? You want to do a podcast? And I was like, sure. So I had a meeting with Dolly, president of Black Effect, and we pitched two things. And they took the reparations podcast, which is the original thing he's thought of. But he called me later and said, you remember that the other one that you pitched, Finding Tamika? I have a new deal with Kevin Hart at Audible. Our company's called SBH. And maybe we can do it there. And that's what happened. He just liked them both, and he believed in us and in me, and he gave us a shot. He found a different way, a different path.
Now let's go back to Finding Tamika. So, full disclosure, I used to work in news, right? And I know that the issue is a lot, being an anchor or a reporter, the issue is you're not allowed to tell, your own stories. I mean, you may pick a story and say, hey, news director, this may be an interesting, story that we should cover, and it gets shot down, especially coming from Black people. A
Mhm.
lot of our stories we can't even tell. So why do you think, in your opinion, and you know, been in the news cycle, you've seen kind of how things work behind the scenes, why do you think we're not being able to tell our own stories?
Well, you know, that's not unique. Your experience is not unique if you're in Black media or in the industry, entertainment industry at all. We get told no a lot. That's just,
Yeah.
that's just horrible. And so the good news is that you're not alone. The sad news is that it for many years we are, as a group and a population, responsible for the greatest culture growth in world history. And that's a fact. 13% African Americans have created the world's culture. As beautiful as other people's cultures are, we're not going around singing their songs, they're singing our songs. They're singing rock and roll and blues and jazz and hip hop. There's no other people who've done that except for us. And yet here we are struggling to tell our stories. They'll accept us as singers, they'll accept us as athletes, but not as storytellers. Why? It's insidious. But the truth is, if you start to tell a three-dimensional story of a people, you can't make them a monster anymore. You can't make them an other anymore. You can't make people afraid anymore. So that's kind of like territory that they've guarded with gargoyles. And some of the gargoyles, many of them live at those studios, and they've been told no. And what they'll tell you is it won't sell. It doesn't translate overseas. We want a larger market. Well, right now you can't tell that lie anymore because the minority majority is ascendant. So they're only doing it now because everything has changed in the world, including the internet. So that's why. The reason is because for many years it was a way to control the narrative, and whoever controls the narrative controls history.
Oh, yes, absolutely. I was looking at the statistics of, I think it's like 30% of Black people go missing, but only a very small percentage, I want to say
Like
like
4% or something crazy.
yeah, um, are covered in the media. Um, that to me, especially when we're, you know, right off of, I think her name was Abby that went missing. I mean, people were on that like white on rice, you know what I mean?
Yeah, literally.
What there is, and I'm pretty sure you agree too, there's a lack of concern for Black women, or, you know, like there's always victim blaming, I feel like, when it comes to Black women. I also notice people are always like, well, what about this person? How do you address those that do the what abouts?
And when they say, what about who were they talking about?
Another demographic.
Indigenous?
Yes. Or,
Yeah.
you know, and not saying that it doesn't happen, but I'm just saying this is who we're talking about right now, a Black woman.
Sure.
Let's just kind of, you know, focus on that.
Well, we're the only people who are asked to consider everybody when we're asking to be considered at all. That's weird, that we can't talk about somebody, and it's not selfish of us to say Black Lives Matter. No, every life matters. Of course, ask any Black person who has fought for civil rights. Everyone who fought for civil rights understands that it was a greater good for everyone. But we're not talking about us to the exclusion of others. They are. We're just saying our lives matter. You know, we need social justice, not because social justice doesn't live or justice doesn't live. It's because it doesn't seem to work for us. And so they put civil rights laws on the books. Why? Because we were the ones who were targets. So I believe in bringing to light all the disparities between all the groups. Indigenous women and girls have an even higher amount, percentage gone versus their demographic population or their numbers, which is absurd. And we shouldn't stand for that at all. But again, to talk about Black women and girls does not mean it's to the exclusion of Indigenous. In fact, where you work for Black people, most people and all people are helped.
Absolutely. And one last thing before I go, you know, I have done a lot of commentating when it comes to true crime stories for, you know, TV1. There was one that I was just talking about, Hydea Pendleton, if I'm saying that correctly, her last name. But yeah, but I just want to, you know, kind of leave on this note. I was really definitely connected to you being so involved in so many other aspects outside of acting. You're really putting the foot forward. Do you think outside of Finding Tamika that we may have another Audible original called maybe, Finding Nakia? No, don't say that. I'm not putting that out there. I'm not putting it in the universe.
Or Nakia's Great Adventure. Yeah. The answer is yes, yes, and yes. This turned out to be a really great partnership. By the way, I had to learn and educate myself about what the audio space is. This is not even seen as a podcast from them. It's called an Audible Original. And so they're seeing as a very high quality audio experience. And so I had James T. Green by my side. He's a fantastic audio specialist, and he co-wrote with me this neo-noir true crime ghost story. And when we first started talking about it, we thought, we don't even know if this mashup will work, but it was something that sounded interesting to us. And it sounded like it would at least encompass her life, but also the true crime aspect of it that existed. There was a real crime that happened, but also we wanted to tell a story about a person who was a detective, a hero, and the femme fatale a little bit. There was that she three-dimensional means looking at her flaws. No one has time to do that when you're trying to find somebody. You're trying to paint them in the best light you can. So everyone goes looking and doesn't start to say, oh, look at that picture. She deserves it. You know how they do that. They'll pull up all sorts of things. But in this, we could tell a fuller story, which actually gives people permission to see Black women and girls as real people, whole people, not just characteristics like sassy or she's strong, or she's so comforting, and oh, look at, she just makes me feel so heartwarming, and she's got a soul. I mean, those are all wonderful adjectives, but we also have dreams, we have desire, we make mistakes, we have flaws. We're not always trying to live our best lives, frankly. Sometimes we live in our worst life. That doesn't mean it's not interesting. They show characters like that all the time that are white. But if we do that, we not only can't get them funded, people say, well, I want to see a positive version. I said, yeah, but positive version is not all we are. And if we don't start showing the true multidimensionality of us, we become just these characters and these cartoon cutouts. And no one goes looking for those people. We want to be the face that launches 1,000 ships, like Helen of Troy. We want to be those mythological things too. And the only way you can do that is to start to tell a fuller, true story of who we are, but also create mythological rewards with our faces on it. If you come save us, look at what all you gain. Look at what you're willing to sacrifice to save that woman. We need to be seen as queens and princesses and all these other things, sure, but also full people. And right now, I don't think that that's always the case, although there are plenty of people doing that I don't want to say that that's not the case. I'm just saying, if you don't value something, you don't go looking for it, and you don't see it when it's here. And by the way, most of this is a warning for us. Finding Tamika is a warning for us. If we are an empire in a so-called first world country, and you cannot protect your most vulnerable people, then you are already destroyed.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much for your time, Erika. I know my time is up. It's so wild. I've interviewed Queen Latifah. I've interviewed TC Carson. I've interviewed you today. So all I have left.
Kim Fields, Kim Coles, and John Hinton.
Yes, that's all. That's it. And then I went.
Well, we count ourselves lucky as being interviewed by you. So thank you so much. And by the way, and I want to say thank you, because it was the Black press that lifted Tamika's story and made it viable. And Rebecca Howard, who is our aunt, always said the Black press came to her aid and wrote stories and did stories from Tom Joyner on, and they made sure that the Tamika story did not die. So the fact that you're in media and news and all this entertainment world, and you're holding it down, it not only means a lot, it means that we can survive this storm, because there's a storm going against us for us not to win in this space. But the people who are there, the people who are holding court and see these are not only valuable, but also the future. When we look back, those are the stories that will resonate, and it'll be because of people like you. You tell the story before it hits the so-called larger market. And frankly, those are the people who are the most valuable to civilization.
Thank you so much. I do my best. Sometimes it gets, a little difficult because I'm a smaller media outlet, but I do my best because I feel like everybody's voice, especially Black voices, I'm a Black woman, so I know how it goes, needs to be heard. So thank you so much.
And people need to be encouraged. And so when they see you asking about their thing, they've got fuel to go on. When no one else is asking, you're asking. And you're also asking people like me who are veterans in the space. And we're glad to see you. Trust me. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. You enjoy the rest of your day. I hope we get to do this again because I absolutely love you.
Thank you.
So let's not let this be the last time.
No, not at all. And people should go to audible.com/Tamika. Audible.com/Tamika. If they want to check it out, there's a free episode there. The first episode is there. I hope you like it. Please tell a friend. We need all the support we can. We're trying to build on this Find Her hashtag movement and create a way, no matter what, to have platforms, even among ourselves, to find people and sound the alarm.
Okay, absolutely.
See her. Bye. I can't stop talking.
Yeah, I know I'm going to get you in trouble. All right.
It's all good. Bye-bye.
All right, bye now.